I stared at the contract Greg had just slid across his desk. Tuesday afternoon, no warning, no preamble. Take a 33% pay cut effective immediately, or clean out my desk by Friday. He leaned back in his chair and shrugged like he was commenting on the weather. Plenty of candidates would kill for my position, he said. They could replace me by tomorrow. I had spent 4 years building the proprietary inventory optimization system that ran their entire operation. I looked at the paper, then at his smug face. Okay, I said. The word hung in the air between us for a moment. Greg blinked clearly, expecting me to argue or beg. When I stood up and walked toward his office door, I heard him say something behind me, but the blood was rushing in my ears too loud to make it out. My hands felt numb as I pushed through the glass door and walked back to my desk in the open office space. Derek looked up from his monitor first, then Amanda. Caroline's eyes went wide. They could read my face apparently because Amanda half stood from her chair like she might come over. I saved her the trouble. I'm leaving by Friday, I said quietly, taking the resignation option. The three of them exchanged glances. I expected sympathy, maybe shock, definitely some kind of support. We had worked together for nearly 3 years. Instead, Derek's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but definitely wasn't sadness. Amanda sat back down. Caroline actually perked up. So your office will be available? Caroline asked. I felt something crack inside my chest. Derek leaned toward Amanda and whispered something I absolutely heard, finally getting promoted. I sat down at my desk and stared at my computer screen without seeing it. 4 years. 4 years I had poured into this place. Not just the regular work, the boring supply chain management tasks they actually paid me for. I had built something extraordinary here, something that saved this company millions of dollars every single year. The inventory prediction algorithm had been my baby from the start. I developed it entirely on my personal laptop, mostly during evenings after I put Emma to bed, sometimes on weekends when she was at her friend Lily's house. The system used machine learning to predict customer demand patterns with incredible accuracy. It reduced warehouse costs by 42%. I had run the numbers myself last quarter, $3 million in annual savings, give or take. And I had coded every single line myself, used my own proprietary methodology, the one I had developed during my graduate research at Stanford. The company never made me sign any intellectual property assignment paperwork for this specific system. It fell through the cracks during the merger 2 years ago, when everything was chaos and half the HR department quit. That realization hit me like cold water. I owned it. The system ran on my personal cloud servers. They never made me transfer it to company infrastructure because Greg thought keeping it on cloud servers saved them money on their own server costs. He had no idea what he had just let walk out the door. Relief flooded through me so fast I felt dizzy. I had leverage, real leverage. Then my email notification pinged. The message was from HR. Sent 1 hour ago, right after my meeting with Greg. The subject line read, Exit Agreement and Final Compensation. My stomach dropped as I opened it. The email explained that I would need to sign an exit agreement before receiving my final paycheck and severance package. Attached was a PDF with dense legal language. I scrolled through it, my throat, getting tighter with every paragraph. Buried in Section 7 was the poison pill, a retroactive intellectual property assignment clause covering all systems, processes, and methodologies developed during my employment. All systems, including mine. The severance was 2 weeks of pay, $4,000, money I desperately needed. I was a single mother to Emma, who just turned 7 last month. We rented a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent school district for $1,200 a month. I had maybe $8,000 in savings accumulated carefully over the past few years by skipping vacations and buying clothes at thrift stores. My parents were both gone. Car accident when I was 25. I was an only child, no siblings to call for help. Emma's father, Jason, had stopped paying child support 3 years ago when he moved to Oregon or Washington or wherever he went. I stopped trying to track him down after the second failed court order. Emma had asthma. Not severe, but she needed a daily inhaler that cost $80 a month even with insurance. Insurance I got through this job. Insurance that would end the minute I walked out that door. The legal review period for the exit agreement was 48 hours. Sign it or forfeit everything, including my final paycheck. I sat in my car in the parking garage for over an hour that evening, reading the agreement on my phone over and over. My hands shook so badly, I had to rest the phone on the steering wheel. 47 hours to decide whether to sign away my only leverage for $4,000. I desperately needed to keep a roof over my daughter's head. I did not sign the agreement. Instead, I used $1,500 from my savings to hire an intellectual property attorney named Patricia Huang. Her office was in a converted house downtown, the kind with creaky floors and too much dark wood paneling. She had good reviews online, and her consultation fee was reasonable. I brought everything. My employment contract, the non-existent IP assignment paperwork, printed copies of emails, timestamps from my cloud server bills. Patricia spent 90 minutes reviewing every document. When she finally looked up, she was smiling. "You own this system," she said. "Cleanly. No question. You can prove you built it on personal equipment during personal time. The company has no claim." The relief almost knocked me sideways. Then Patricia started talking about licensing fees and valuation. She estimated the system was worth at least $50,000 annually in licensing fees. Probably more given how much the company relied on it. The deadline to sign the exit agreement came and went. I let it pass. No signature. No $4,000. HR sent me 3 increasingly aggressive emails about consequences of non-compliance. Greg left me a voicemail at 11:30 at night, calling me ungrateful and unprofessional. His voice was slurred. I saved the message. Friday arrived. My last official day. I did not go to the office. I stayed home with Emma, made her chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast, and tried to pretend everything was normal. She asked why I was not at work. I told her I was taking a personal day. She accepted this easily the way 7-year-olds do, and spent the morning building elaborate structures with her blocks. At 12:15, my phone exploded. Derek called 6 times in a row. Then Amanda. Then someone from IT, whose name I did not even recognize. I finally answered when Derek called the 7th time. "The system stopped working," he said. His voice was pure panic. "It just shut down. Everything is backing up. The warehouse does not know what to ship. Customers are getting wrong products. Jocelyn, I cannot access anything. How do I fix this?" The system had been set to automatically shut down at midnight on my last day of employment. I had programmed that failsafe 3 years ago, never thinking I would actually need it. I told Derek I could not help him and hung up. Then I opened my laptop and wrote the most professional email of my life. I addressed it to Greg and copied the CEO, Nathan Brooks, whose email I had found on the company website. "Dear Greg and Nathan," I wrote, "I understand there are some technical difficulties with the inventory optimization system. I want you to know that I am willing to license this system to the company under reasonable terms. The system was developed on my personal time, using my personal resources as I am prepared to demonstrate. My licensing terms are $75,000 annually for 3 years, paid quarterly in advance. I believe this is fair compensation given the value the system provides. I look forward to discussing this matter professionally." I kept the tone cordial and businesslike. Sent it at 1:30 in the afternoon. The response came at 3:45. Not from Greg, not from Nathan, from a lawyer named Howard Lang, the company's corporate counsel. The email was not cordial. Howard claimed the system had been developed using company resources and company time. He said they had documentation proving company ownership. He threatened legal action for theft of trade secrets and sabotage. The word sabotage appeared 4 times in a 2-paragraph email. He demanded I restore system access immediately or face criminal charges. He mentioned they had already filed a police report for corporate theft. He said they were seeking an emergency restraining order to prevent me from destroying company property. Criminal charges, police report, restraining order. I read the email 5 times, my vision blurring at the edges. This was not a negotiation. This was a threat. Emma came into the kitchen asking for a snack. I closed my laptop quickly and got her some apple slices and peanut butter, my hands moving on autopilot. She asked why I looked scared. I told her I was just tired. She hugged my leg and went back to her blocks. I called Patricia immediately. She told me not to panic. The police report was a bluff, a scare tactic, but it was working. Terror had wrapped around my chest like a vice. Patricia said defending against their claims could cost $30,000 minimum. $30,000 I absolutely did not have. Then she told me something worse. Even though you own the system, she said carefully, there is a legal gray area about disclosure. They could argue you breached your duty of loyalty by not telling them you were taking it when you left. If they frame it right, they might claim you sabotaged the company. So I could be right and still lose, I said. Patricia hesitated. We need to be very careful. One wrong move could put you in real legal jeopardy. That night, Emma was already asleep when the doorbell rang. It was a courier with a certified letter. I signed for it with shaking hands. The letter was from Howard Lang, a formal legal demand. I had 72 hours to restore access to the system and surrender all code, or they would pursue all available legal remedies, including criminal prosecution. Emma's bedroom door was open. I could see her sleeping peacefully, her nightlight casting stars on the ceiling. She had no idea that her mother was holding a piece of paper that could destroy both their lives. I decided to stand firm. After hours of agonized conversation with Patricia, I decided not to cave to their threats. Patricia drafted a formal response. Professional firm citing case law. The letter stated clearly that I owned the system, that I was willing to license it commercially under reasonable terms, and that I would not be bullied by baseless legal threats. For about 36 hours I felt almost empowered. Like maybe I could actually win this. Then Greg and Howard launched their counterattack. It started with emails. Industry contacts I had built relationships with over years started receiving messages. The messages claimed I had stolen proprietary systems from my former employer, that I was holding the company hostage, that I had engaged in corporate sabotage. My LinkedIn profile suddenly got flooded with connection requests, but they were not opportunities. They were competitors, asking about the theft allegations. Industry, Facebook groups. I was part of professional communities where I had been an active member, suddenly had anonymous posts questioning my ethics. Someone created a blog post detailing Jocelyn's corporate sabotage with enough accurate details about me to be convincing, but enough lies to be devastating. I started applying for jobs immediately. I needed income desperately. I applied to 12 positions in 3 days, all jobs I was overqualified for. My resume was strong. My experience was solid. I got phone screens right away. Recruiters were interested in my background. Then the calls stopped coming. One recruiter was honest with me. We heard some concerning things from your previous employer, she said. I am sorry. Another company rescinded an interview invitation after speaking with references. The HR person would not tell me what they had been told, just that they were going in a different direction. Greg was actively sabotaging my job search. Every application I submitted, he was there behind the scenes, poisoning the well. 2 weeks passed since my last paycheck. My savings account showed $6,200. Rent was due in 12 days. Emma needed new school supplies because second grade had different requirements than first grade. $35 worth of folders and pencils and crayons. I stood in the Target aisle for 10 minutes trying to decide if I could afford it. Health insurance ended in 16 days. Without it, Emma's asthma medication would cost $400 every month. Then Patricia called with an update. She had been reviewing my case more carefully, she said. Her tone had changed. Cooler, more distant. She believed my position was weaker than she had initially assessed. She recommended I accept a settlement, restore the system, take $10,000, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and move on with my life. I was confused. This contradicted everything she had told me before. Patricia became pushy, almost aggressive. She kept saying I needed to be realistic, that fighting corporations was expensive, that I should think about my daughter. Something felt wrong, very wrong. That night I could not sleep. I sat up at my laptop researching Patricia's law firm until 3 in the morning. That was when I found it, buried in their past client list on a website archive from 4 years ago. Patricia's firm had done work for my former company, consulting on a merger, legal review of contracts. Patricia had never disclosed this conflict of interest. She was supposed to be my advocate. Instead, she had been undermining my case from the beginning, steering me toward a settlement that would benefit the company, not me. I fired her via email at 4 in the morning. Professional, but firm. Cited ethical violations and conflict of interest. Said I would be reporting her to the state bar. Now I had no lawyer, and no money to hire a new one. The company's next deadline was approaching fast. 48 hours to surrender the system, or they would file for an injunction in court. If a judge granted it, I could be forced to hand over everything with zero compensation. The next morning, Emma's school called. My credit card had been declined for her lunch account refill. $30. I did not have $30 of available credit left. I broke down crying in the grocery store parking lot that afternoon. I had gone in to buy chicken for dinner, but could not afford it when I got to the register. The total was $18.63. I had $17 in my checking account. I put the chicken back and bought pasta and jarred sauce instead. The cashier saw me crying and looked away. When I got home, Emma asked if we were poor now. I did not know how to answer. I said we were going through a tight time, but everything would be okay. She nodded seriously, too seriously for a 7-year-old, and said she would not ask for any toys for Christmas. That night I received notification that the company had filed an emergency motion in court. The hearing was scheduled for 9 in the morning, 12 hours away. I needed to find a lawyer or represent myself. I had $400 left in my checking account. Emma was asleep in the next room. I locked myself in the bathroom, sat on the floor with my back against the tub, and sobbed as silently as I could into a towel. I went to court alone. The courthouse was downtown, all marble floors and echoing hallways. I wore my best interview suit and carried a folder with printed documents, my evidence, timestamps, cloud server bills, email records, everything I could think of to prove I owned the system. The company brought 3 lawyers, Howard Lang and 2 associates I did not recognize. They wore expensive suits and carried leather briefcases. They looked like they belonged there. I looked like I was about to throw up. Judge Martha Hendricks presided. She was maybe 60 with steel gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She listened to Howard's opening argument with an impassive expression. Howard was eloquent, smooth. He painted me as a disgruntled employee who had stolen company property and was now holding it hostage. He claimed the company was losing $40,000 per day due to the system shutdown. He requested an immediate injunction forcing me to restore access. When it was my turn to speak, I stumbled through my arguments. I explained that I had built the system on my personal time using my personal equipment. I showed my cloud server bills with timestamps. I tried to explain the absence of any IP assignment paperwork. Judge Hendricks asked pointed questions. Why did you not disclose you were taking the system when you left? Did you intentionally time the shutdown to cause maximum damage? I tried to answer. I said I did not think I needed permission to keep something I owned. I said the shutdown was automatic, not malicious, but I sounded defensive, uncertain, like someone making excuses. The judge took a 30-minute recess to consider. When she returned, she did not grant the full injunction. That was the good news. The bad news was much worse. She ordered the code to be placed in escrow with the court. Neither party could use it until ownership was determined through proper legal channels. She ordered mediation within 2 weeks. Until then, the system was locked away. This was a disaster. My only leverage was now frozen. I could not license it to anyone else. I could not use it to prove my skills to potential employers. The company would survive. They were already implementing a temporary manual process. Expensive and inefficient, but survivable. I had nothing. Outside the courthouse, a man approached me, mid-30s, cheap suit, notepad in hand. He introduced himself as a reporter for the local business journal. Someone had tipped him off about the case. He asked about the corporate theft allegations. I said no comment and walked away as fast as I could without running. The article published that evening. Local tech worker, accused of stealing company systems. My name, my photo from LinkedIn, a quote from Howard about protecting intellectual property. Nothing from me, except no comment, which made me look guilty. The comment section filled up fast. People calling me a thief, saying I deserved to be prosecuted. Someone found my address and posted it online. I checked my bank account that night. $37. Rent was due in 4 days. $1,200 I did not have. I called my best friend Rachel. We had been close since college. She was Emma's godmother. I had never asked her for money before. Never asked anyone for money. Rachel, I need to borrow $1,200 for rent, I said. My voice cracked on the words. I will pay you back as soon as I can. I promise. There was a long pause. Then Rachel said she needed to talk to her husband Travis. She would call me back. 2 hours later she called. Travis was not comfortable lending that much, but Rachel had convinced him to loan me $800. I would need to figure out the rest on my own. And Jocelyn, she said carefully, maybe you should just give them the system. This seems like it is destroying you. The words stung worse than the rejection. Even my best friend thought I should surrender. I borrowed the $800. I begged Mrs. Kowalski, my landlord, to accept $400 now and the rest in 2 weeks. She was not happy, but agreed because Emma was a good kid, and she did not want to evict a single mother. Emma overheard me on the phone. She came out of her bedroom and asked directly if I had lost my job. I could not lie to her anymore. I explained as gently as I could that I had left my job because they were not treating me fairly, that we were going through a hard time, but I was fixing it. Are we going to be okay? She asked. Yes, I promised. We are going to be okay. I did not believe my own words. That night Howard sent another email. A new settlement offer. The company would pay me $15,000. I would surrender all code, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and release all claims. The offer expired in 24 hours. $15,000. It was insulting considering the system was worth hundreds of thousands. But it was money. Real money that could cover 3 months of expenses while I found a new job. I lay awake all night doing calculations on my phone. 15,000 versus potential hundreds of thousands in licensing fees if I won. But only if I won. If I lost, I got nothing. And I had already lost so much. At 3 in the morning, I almost accepted. I typed out the email. I accept your offer. My finger hovered over the send button. I thought about Emma, about teaching her to stand up for herself, about Greg's smug face when he told me they could replace me by tomorrow. But I also thought about being evicted, about Emma going hungry, about failing as a mother because I was too proud to surrender. The cursor blinked in the darkness. I could not send it. Not yet. I needed to look one more time through everything. Some part of me still believed there was something I had missed. Some piece of evidence that would change everything. I started going through old emails again. Hundreds of them. Searching for anything useful. At 5:43 in the morning, I found it. An email thread from 3 years ago. I had completely forgotten about it. I had sent Greg a detailed proposal about developing an inventory optimization system. I specifically mentioned I would build it on my own time, using my own resources as a professional development project. I asked if he had any concerns about me pursuing it. Greg's response was right there, in black and white. Sounds great. Go ahead with your side project. Just make sure your regular work does not suffer. Your side project. He called it mine. He knew I owned it. He approved it. In writing. This was smoking gun evidence. Proof that Greg understood the system was separate from my employment work. Proof that the company's current claims were lies. I printed the email with shaking hands. This could change everything. But I needed a real lawyer to use it effectively. A good lawyer who could take this to court and win. And I had no money to hire one. The sun came up. Emma padded out of her bedroom asking what was for breakfast. I realized there was no food in the house. Nothing. The refrigerator held condiments and a half-gallon of milk. The pantry had 1 box of crackers. I put Emma in the car and drove to the food bank. It opened at 8. We were 4th in line. I spent Monday morning calling employment attorneys. By my count, I called 43 different firms. Most would not take contingency cases. The ones who did were not interested in fighting a corporation. Too risky, too expensive, too complicated. At 2:15 in the afternoon, I reached the office of Marcus Chen, solo practitioner, younger attorney. His website said he specialized in employment disputes and underdog cases. The receptionist put me through immediately. Marcus agreed to meet me that same day. His office was above a Thai restaurant, accessible by a narrow staircase that smelled like basil and fish sauce. His waiting room had 3 mismatched chairs and outdated magazines. But when I met him, I liked him immediately. He was maybe 35 earnest, and he actually listened. I showed him everything. The email from Greg approving my side project, the court escrow order, the settlement offer that was still technically on the table. He read through everything carefully, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When he looked up, he was smiling. "This email is exactly what we need," he said. "This is your case right here. Greg explicitly approved you developing the system independently. He called it your project. Any claim they make about company ownership contradicts his own written statement." "Can you help me?" I asked. "I do not have money for a retainer, but if we win, if I get licensing fees, I can pay you then." Marcus leaned back in his chair. 30% of any settlement or judgment, he said. Standard contingency rate. And I think we can win this. I could have hugged him. Instead, I signed his retainer agreement right there, my signature, shaky with relief. Marcus moved fast. He filed a motion to introduce the email as new evidence. He sent an aggressive letter to Howard demanding they withdraw all accusations against me and stop interfering with my job search. He proposed new licensing terms. $120,000 annually for 5 years, $600,000 total. For the first time in weeks, I started to believe I might actually win. Life stabilized slightly. Rachel's loan had covered most of the rent. I found a part-time remote job doing data entry for a medical billing company. $15 per hour, 20 hours per week. It was not nearly enough to live on, but it was something. Proof that I was employable, that I had not given up. Emma adjusted to our new normal. She stopped asking about money, started doing her homework without being reminded. She was growing up too fast, taking on worries no 7-year-old should carry. 1 week before the scheduled mediation, Marcus called. His tone was different. Tight. Angry. "The company filed for bankruptcy," he said. "Chapter 11, Reorganization. They are claiming the inventory system failure caused irreparable financial damage. They are blaming you for forcing them into bankruptcy." "What does that mean for us?" I asked. "It means mediation is canceled. All lawsuits are automatically stayed during bankruptcy. Your claim becomes just one of hundreds in bankruptcy court. Even if you win, you will get pennies on the dollar, and it could take years." I sat down on the floor, just dropped right there in the middle of my kitchen. Years. The system would sit in escrow, useless to everyone, while lawyers and judges sorted through bankruptcy proceedings. Meanwhile, I would wait with no income and no prospects. Marcus explained the implications. Bankruptcy meant the company's assets would be liquidated or sold. Someone else might buy my system in the bankruptcy sale. I could lose it entirely. To protect myself, I would need to file a claim in bankruptcy court, asserting ownership. But that process was expensive and glacially slow. The next afternoon I got a call from Derek. I almost did not answer, but curiosity won out. "Jocelyn," he said. His voice sounded guilty. "I need to tell you something. I feel terrible about how everything went down." He confessed everything. Greg had been planning to push me out for months. He wanted to take credit for the inventory system himself. He was going to claim he had supervised its development, that it was a team effort under his leadership. The pay cut ultimatum was designed specifically to make me quit. Greg wanted me gone so he could appropriate my work. Derek also told me the bankruptcy might be strategic. Howard had suggested it as a way to avoid paying me. File Chapter 11. Claim financial hardship, bury my claim in bankruptcy court, where it would take years to resolve and ultimately get settled for nothing. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because it is wrong," Derek said. "What they did to you is wrong. I should have said something earlier. I was afraid for my own job. I am still afraid. But you should know the truth." After I hung up, I felt numb. They had orchestrated my destruction deliberately, systematically, and now they were using bankruptcy law as a weapon to avoid the consequences. My data entry job ended the next week. The contract had only been for 3 weeks. They did not have more work available. I was back to zero income. Rachel could not lend me any more money. She called to apologize. Travis had put his foot down. They had their own bills, their own family to think about. I understood. I told her I understood. But after I hung up, I cried for an hour. I applied for food assistance, filled out forms online late at night when Emma was asleep. The questions were humiliating. How much money do you have in savings? $412. Do you own any assets? A 12-year-old Honda Civic with a cracked windshield and 170,000 miles. Emma's teacher called. Mrs. Donnelly was kind but concerned. Emma had been withdrawn at school, not participating in class. Other kids had teased her about the article calling me a thief. Emma got in a fight defending me. She pushed a boy who called me a criminal. Mrs. Donnelly suggested Emma might benefit from counseling. "I cannot afford counseling," I said. There was a pause. Mrs. Donnelly said she understood. She would keep an eye on Emma. She was sorry this was happening to us. I sat in my car outside Emma's school that afternoon waiting for pickup. Through the windshield, I watched other mothers chatting. They looked relaxed, happy. Their biggest worry was probably what to make for dinner. I had destroyed our life over a principle. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe I should have taken the $15,000 settlement when I had the chance. Now the company might get away with everything, and I would have nothing. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. But something made me pick up. "This is Nathan Brooks," the voice said. "The CEO. I was wondering if you had time to meet today. Just the two of us. Off the record." I was so surprised I could not speak for a moment. "I was not fully aware of Greg's actions," Nathan continued. "I think maybe we can work something out without lawyers. Would you be willing to meet?" Marcus had advised me strongly never to meet with them without legal representation. It could be a trap. They could twist my words, record me saying something incriminating. But I was so desperate I would try anything. 30 minutes later, I sat in a coffee shop downtown, phone in my pocket, with the recording app running like Marcus had instructed. The door opened, and Nathan walked in. His first words were, "I need to apologize." Nathan sat down across from me and put his hands flat on the table. He looked exhausted. Lines around his eyes I had not noticed in company photos. He was maybe 50, graying at the temples, wearing an expensive suit that somehow looked rumpled. "I did not know the full story until last week," he said. "When the bankruptcy filing crossed my desk, Greg characterized you as a disgruntled employee trying to extort the company. I only saw Howard's legal memos. I never reviewed the actual evidence myself. That was my mistake. I waited. Said nothing. Marcus had coached me. Let him talk. Do not volunteer anything. Last Thursday, I finally sat down and read through the case file myself. Nathan shook his head. I found the email where Greg approved your side project, the one where he explicitly called it yours. When I confronted him about it, he claimed he did not remember writing it, that it was taken out of context. Was it? I asked. No. Nathan looked me straight in the eye. It was not out of context. You told him exactly what you were building. He approved it. He knew you owned it. And then when you left, he panicked, because his deception would be exposed. What deception? Nathan sighed. Greg has been lying to the executive team for over a year. He claimed the inventory system was a team effort that he supervised. He was positioning himself for a VP promotion based on that success. When you resigned, he realized everyone would figure out he had nothing to do with it. So he and Howard came up with a plan to bury you. Howard is Greg's college fraternity brother, Nathan continued. Did you know that they have been friends for 25 years? Howard should have recused himself from this case due to personal bias. But he did not. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I want to settle. Fairly. Nathan leaned forward. The bankruptcy was Howard's idea. I was told it was necessary to protect the company from financial collapse. But now I realize it was just a tactic to avoid paying you what you deserve. I want to make this right. He made an offer. $50,000, cash. Paid personally by Nathan, not through the company. I would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and release all claims against the company. But I would have money immediately. I could move on with my life. $50,000 was more than I had ever seen in one place. It would solve all my immediate problems, pay off debts, cover rent for over a year, get therapy for Emma, stabilize our lives. But something did not feel right. If you are so sorry, I said carefully, why only $50,000? The system is worth far more. You said so yourself. $3 million in annual savings. Nathan shifted in his seat. It is what I can do personally. The company is in bankruptcy. My hands are tied. Then why the NDA? If you are trying to make things right, why do I have to stay silent? Nathan did not answer. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. I caught a glimpse of the screen. The text was upside down, but I could make out enough. Board meeting starting. Where are you? You are supposed to be in a board meeting right now, I said. Nathan's expression changed, hardened slightly. What is really happening, Nathan? He stared at me for a long moment. Then he sighed and the facade cracked. The bankruptcy is real, he said. But it is also strategic. The board does not know about Greg's email approving your side project. If that comes out in bankruptcy proceedings, it becomes public record. It would prove Greg lied. It would expose Howard's conflict of interest. The company could be liable for defamation, tortious interference with your job prospects, maybe more. Our stock would tank. Investors would sue. The whole house of cards collapses. And you need me to stay quiet, I said. Nathan nodded slowly. We are not trying to save $50,000. We are trying to avoid a catastrophe. I sat back in my chair. The power dynamic had just shifted completely. I had more leverage than I thought. The system is still in court escrow, I said. Neither of us can use it. But you are losing $60,000 a day without it. That is what Howard claimed in court. How long can you actually survive? Nathan rubbed his face. Not long. Maybe another month before we are forced into real bankruptcy. Not strategic. Actual liquidation. My mind was racing. I thought about the original licensing terms Marcus had proposed. $120,000 per year for 5 years. $600,000 total. I want what I originally asked for, I said. $600,000, paid up front, plus a public apology clearing my name. And Greg gets fired. Nathan laughed bitterly. The board would never approve that. They would rather go bankrupt than pay an employee $600,000. Former employee, I corrected. And what happens to you when the company goes bankrupt? You lose your job too. Your reputation. Your stock options become worthless. I stood to leave. Wait. Nathan grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but desperate. Please wait. I pulled my arm back and stepped away. The board meeting happening right now, Nathan said. Quickly is about emergency financing. We have a major investor presentation tomorrow morning. If we do not have the inventory system operational by then, we lose a $20 million investment. Without that money, we are done. Real bankruptcy. Everyone loses, including you. He pulled out his phone and typed something. Then he showed me the screen. It was an email draft. To the company's bank. Instructions for a wire transfer. $300,000 to my name. This is what I can do, Nathan said. $300,000. Right now, wire transfer will be complete within the hour. Greg will be quietly transitioned out in the next quarter. We cannot fire him immediately without raising questions, but he will be gone. And you get the system back after 6 months to use or license however you want. $300,000. Life-changing money. Not what I deserved, but substantial. But it meant letting Greg mostly get away with it. It meant giving up potential future licensing revenue. It meant signing an NDA and never telling anyone what really happened. Marcus was texting me frantically. My phone buzzed against my leg. He could see my location. He knew where I was. He was probably losing his mind that I was negotiating without him. You have until the board meeting ends, Nathan said. 1 hour. That is when they vote on the emergency financing. If we do not have a deal by then, the financing falls through. We declare bankruptcy. We liquidate. You get nothing. My phone rang. Not Marcus this time. A number I did not recognize. New York area code. I almost did not answer. But something made me. This is Stephanie Valdez from Crestline Ventures, the woman said. We are a venture capital firm based in Manhattan. We read about your case in the Business Journal. We are very interested in your inventory optimization system. We would like to discuss funding a startup built around it. I could barely process what she was saying. We are prepared to offer an initial investment of $2 million for 30% equity, Stephanie continued. But we need to move quickly. Our partners are meeting tomorrow at 10. Could you be available for a video call? Nathan was staring at me. He could not hear the VC's words, but he could see my expression changing. I need to call you back, I told Stephanie. I gave her my email and ended the call. Now I had 3 paths. Take Nathan's $300,000 and sign the NDA. Keep fighting in bankruptcy court and hope to win eventually. Or reject Nathan, pull the system from escrow somehow, and start a company with VC funding. Each option was a massive risk. Each could lead to triumph or disaster. Nathan was watching me. Waiting. The VC was waiting for my response. Marcus was calling again, the phone vibrating insistently in my pocket. I had maybe 60 seconds to make a decision that would determine whether I became wealthy or lost everything. Whether Greg faced consequences or walked away clean. Whether I played it safe or risked it all one more time. I took a deep breath. I have a counteroffer, I said. I looked Nathan in the eye and laid out my terms. $500,000 by wire transfer within 4 hours. A perpetual non-exclusive license for the current version of the system, meaning the company could keep using what they had, but I retained all rights. I could modify it, improve it, license it to anyone else I wanted. Greg had to be terminated for cause effective immediately with a public announcement. Nathan would send a written statement to everyone Greg had defamed me to clearing my reputation completely. And I wanted the original email from Greg, authenticated and given to me in writing. Nathan's face went pale. That is more than double what I offered. That is less than the system is worth, I said. You just told me you are losing $60,000 a day. That is over $20 million a year. I am asking for 500,000 one time. That is a bargain, and you know it. I need board approval for that much money. Then you have 30 minutes to get it, I said. Not 1 minute longer. If you do not agree, I walk out of here and start my own company with venture capital funding. Your competitor gets my system. You get nothing. Nathan stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly on the floor. Other coffee shop customers looked over. He pulled out his phone and walked outside. I sat alone at the table, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. I called Marcus and told him everything. He was equal parts impressed and terrified. That was either brilliant or insane, he said. Maybe both. I called Stephanie at Crestline Ventures. Explained I had another offer on the table but was very interested in speaking with them. Could we meet next week instead of tomorrow? There was a pause. Then Stephanie said, "You are negotiating with your former employer." "Yes." "Smart." She sounded amused. "Call me when you know where you stand. This offer is not going anywhere. We like founders who know their worth." 28 minutes later, Nathan came back inside. His tie was loosened. He looked like he had aged 5 years. The board agreed to everything except the amount. 425,000 is as high as they will go. Everything else exactly as you demanded. Wire transfer within 2 hours. Greg is terminated today. Announcement tomorrow morning. Full statement clearing your name. You own the system, we license it. I wanted to negotiate higher, push for the full 500,000. But something in Nathan's face told me this was the absolute limit. If I pushed harder, the whole deal would collapse. 425,000 would change my and Emma's life. It would let me start a company without giving up equity to VCs. It would prove I could win. Deal, I said. We shook hands. Nathan made a phone call right there. I heard him give someone my bank account routing number, the one I had scribbled on a napkin. He hung up and said the wire transfer had been initiated. "I need you to restore system access," he said. I pulled out my laptop, connected to the coffee shop Wi-Fi, logged into my cloud server, changed 3 lines of code and pushed the update. The system came back online. Nathan's phone started buzzing immediately. Text messages flooding in. Derek, Amanda, people in the warehouse. The system was working. Within an hour and 53 minutes, my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. Wire transfer received. $425,037. The $37 was what had been in my account before. I stared at the number until it blurred. Then I put my head down on the table and cried. The company announcement went out that evening. Greg Jensen was no longer with the organization effective immediately. The statement cited a mutual parting of ways and wished him well. But industry insiders knew what mutual parting meant. Greg was finished in this industry. His lies had caught up with him. Nathan sent personal emails to everyone Greg had contacted. He explained there had been a misunderstanding about intellectual property ownership that had been resolved amicably. He apologized for any confusion. He made it clear I had acted professionally throughout. My LinkedIn messages flooded with apologies, with job offers, with people saying they had known all along that Greg was lying. Sure they did. I met with Stephanie and the Crestline Ventures team the following Wednesday. I explained my vision for turning the inventory system into a full software-as-a-service product, something any mid-sized company could license. Stephanie and her partners asked sharp questions. They pushed back on my projections. But at the end of the 2-hour meeting, they made an offer. $2.5 million for 35% equity. I would be CEO. They would provide strategic guidance and connections. I could hire my own team and build it my way. I negotiated them down to 30% equity, took the deal. 3 months later, I incorporated as Optimize Flow. Hired Derek as my first employee. He had quit his job the day after Greg was fired, said he could not work somewhere that had treated me like that. Amanda and Caroline both applied. I did not hire them. Some burned bridges stay burned. By the end of the first year, 5 companies were licensing my system. Revenue was exceeding projections. I hired 10 more employees, moved into a real office space with windows that looked out over downtown. Emma and I moved into a 3-bedroom house with a backyard, actual grass, a swing set. Emma started therapy with a wonderful counselor named Dr. Patricia Sanders, who specialized in helping kids process trauma. Within a few months, Emma was thriving, making friends, laughing again, being 7, instead of carrying the weight of adult worries. I paid Rachel back with interest. She apologized over and over for doubting me, for suggesting I should give up. I told her I understood, that she had helped when I desperately needed it. Our friendship rebuilt itself on more honest ground. Even Mrs. Kowalski, my old landlord, sent me a card when she heard I was moving out. "Congratulations on your success," she wrote. "I always knew you were a fighter." I heard through industry connections that Greg was working at a much smaller company for half his former salary. No one wanted to hire someone who had been caught lying about their accomplishments. Howard faced ethics complaints filed with the state bar, though nothing came of them officially. He received a private reprimand. Nathan remained CEO. The company stabilized with the licensed system. They actually started referring other potential clients to optimize flow. Nathan and I developed a professional respect for each other. Not friendship exactly, but mutual acknowledgement. 1 year after that coffee shop meeting, I was invited to be the keynote speaker at a Women in Tech conference. 300 people in the audience. I told them my story, about Greg's ultimatum, about the nightmare of unemployment and legal threats, about nearly giving up, about that moment when I almost signed the settlement offer in the dark. I told them the truth, that fighting back was terrifying, that I spent weeks thinking I had made the worst decision of my life, that there were moments when surrender seemed like wisdom instead of defeat. But I also told them what I learned, that your value is not determined by how others treat you, that standing up for yourself means accepting you might lose everything, that the darkest moments often come right before the breakthrough, that single mothers can fight corporations and win. After the speech, a young woman approached me. She was maybe 26, tears streaming down her face. She told me her employer was trying to claim ownership of a mobile app she had built on her own time. She did not know what to do. She was terrified. I gave her Marcus's contact information, told her to use my name as a reference, offered to consult on her case for free. She hugged me and said I had given her hope. That was when I understood why the pain had purpose. I could help others now. My story could be a map through the darkness for someone else. On a Sunday afternoon, 2 years after everything started, Emma and I were in our backyard. She was doing math homework at the patio table while I reviewed new licensing agreements. The sun was warm, birds were singing. Everything was quiet and normal and peaceful. "Mom," Emma said, "are you happy now?" I looked up from my laptop, really looked at her. She was 9 now, growing so fast. She had lost that haunted, worried expression she carried for months when we were struggling. I thought about that Tuesday afternoon in Greg's office. The moment he slid the contract across the desk and told me to take a pay cut or leave. The moment I said okay. That word had felt like surrender, like defeat, like the end of everything. But it turned out to be the beginning. The moment I stopped letting someone else determine my worth. The moment I chose to fight on my own terms, even though it was terrifying. "Yes," I told Emma. "I really am happy." She smiled and went back to her homework. I learned something crucial through all of it. Walking away from a bad situation is not giving up. It is giving yourself permission to fight from a position of strength instead of from your knees. Your work has value. You have value. And when you stand firm on that truth, even when your hands are shaking and your bank account is empty and everyone is telling you to surrender, you teach yourself what is possible. Companies count on people being too afraid or too broke to fight back. They use legal threats and financial pressure and reputation destruction because those tactics usually work. Most people cannot afford to stand up, cannot afford to risk everything. I almost could not either. There were moments when I was one signature away from giving up, But something kept me going. Maybe stubbornness, maybe desperation, maybe just the refusal to let Greg win. The people who try to diminish you are often protecting their own fraudulent power. Greg claimed credit for my work because he had nothing of his own. When that was threatened, he tried to destroy me rather than face the truth about himself. And sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is building something so successful, they have to pay you to keep using what you created. It is watching them refer clients to your company. It is knowing that your invention, your vision, your 4 years of late-night coding and weekend work became the foundation of something bigger than they ever imagined. I still have Greg's voicemail saved. The one where he called me ungrateful and unprofessional. Sometimes when I am having a hard day, when a deal falls through, or a client demands too much, or I am questioning my decisions, I listen to it. Not to feel angry, to remember how far I have come, to remember that his opinion of me was never the truth. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up for your own worth when everyone told you to back down? Have you ever walked away from something that was destroying you, even though walking away looked like losing? What did that moment teach you? If this story resonated with you, if you have ever felt undervalued or pressured to accept less than you deserve, I would love to hear your experience in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found value in this, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear that fighting back is possible even when it feels impossible. Every subscription and share helps these stories reach more people who need them. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, whether you are in the middle of your fight or just starting to realize you need to have one, that you know this. You are worth more than anyone's ultimatum. You are worth fighting for. And sometimes the scariest decision turns out to be the one that saves you. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your value does not decrease based on someone else's inability to see your worth.